and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. We have one case today, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panels located directly behind me. Let me just quickly go through our hearing procedure. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if four required findings are present. 1. That the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. 2. That there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. 3. That the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in that zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And 4. That the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria just described, then the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application or the request, and then read reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief presentation and overview of the case and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and any interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak. Again, clearly stating both name and address within a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case taken under submission. There are instances when a case is straightforward, simple case, and the hearing officer may be able to render a decision right at the public hearing. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. I would like to emphasize that the date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from our Building and Safety Section, Permit Services Center, located on the same floor of this building. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of these speaker forms, which have been provided by the front door, and submit it to our assistant. I would like to also inform everyone that the official proceedings of the hearing officer's hearing are recorded on tape as part of public record. This is case number PVAR 2008-037. Location is 372 Arden Avenue. Applicant is Aram Kazajian. Owner is NAC Enterprises, Inc., and case planner is Gevorg Nazarian. This is an application for a variance to construct a 1,382 square foot garage and an attached 891 square foot carport with a reduced interior setback of 5 feet, where a minimum setback of 30 feet is required adjacent to a residential zone, and a 0-foot setback along the easterly property line, where a minimum of 5 feet is required. Property is located at 372 Arden Avenue in the CPD Commercial Plan Development Zone, described as lots 115 and 116, Pioneer Investment and Trust Company's Glendale Place. And let me just quickly go through some of the comments. From All Care Medical Management, Inc. Basically, they are in support of the application. From a neighbor on Arden Avenue, in opposition of the application. And an email from, this is one of the neighbors, basically in opposition of the application. From Glendale Water and Power, comply with height restrictions for structures constructed near overhead electric conductors. So if you have any questions or clarification, you may want to contact them. And from Public Works Engineering, have they received the information they're looking for? Okay, that's it. Neighborhood Services just notifying us they have a case on this property. Fire prevention, fire sprinklers and permit required. Integrated waste. Applicant must comply with their demolition waste reduction and recycling plans. And from Maintenance Services, they just want to make sure you protect, sustain, and maintain the trees that are within the vicinity of the site, and to follow the city's tree protection standard specifications. Okay, those are all the comments I have. Geborg, give me your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Fuentes. Good morning.
Morning.
As you mentioned, the case number for this project is PVAR 2008.
Is your microphone on? Okay.
Should be.
Go ahead.
PVAR 2008-037, located at 372 Arden Avenue. The proposal is to construct 1,363 square foot garage, and I know the report had a higher number. That's because there were changes done to the plan to accommodate for a parking space outside of the garage, so the garage was reduced in size. And the garage is proposed to be 5 feet from the southern property line that is abutting the residential zone, where 30 is required, and 0 setback from the commercial property line where 5 is required. The location of the zone for the property is CPD commercial plan development. Staff did a thorough research and background check with this property, with this project, and the applicant was required or asked to provide some original plans that were not provided. So a research indicated that the existing parking spaces for this property that was originally approved and constructed were 31 spaces, and this construction will not result in additional parking spaces. It will provide a large two-car garage, rather very large two-car garage, due to its irregular shape, and a carport that are structures and cannot be in the setback area. Staff believes that this building was built at its current shape for a reason, to meet code, to have enough parking spaces, have enough turning radius at the back, and provide the on-grade spaces which are okay or allowed to be in the setback area. This structure does not provide additional spaces. All it does is having a structure at the property line where it's not allowed to have. Staff could not make the findings and could not support the project, and believes that at least 3 of the 4 findings cannot actually be made. One, that there is no practical difficulties or hardship that is associated with this project, if there are any, it would be self-imposed. And 2, that there are no exceptional circumstances to this or conditions applicable to the property. This lot is a regular rectangular shaped lot, has access from Columbus, has access from Arden, and it is not an overly large or small lot. It does not possess any unique characteristics that we could identify, besides being at a corner where there's a lot of other corner lots in the town. And lastly, that the granting of the variance will in fact be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance, which is to provide the building separation, which is for many reasons, one being safety, noise, and comfort to the residential properties to the south. And by constructing this will be against the intention of the code. That is why staff could not support the project and recommends denial. That summarizes my report. If you have questions, available.
Okay. What's the exact violation that code enforcement
Currently, may I
cited them? Yes, sure. Go ahead.
The property owner was storing equipment and I believe bobcat tractors, things like that at the site. And there's currently one storage area at the back, which would be here where the garage is proposed. It does not have a roof, but there are walls and a gate that was also used as storage. That was done without a permit. And storing of cars and equipment was the main reason why they were cited. And I just wanted to come up and show you where that storage area is constructed currently that does not have a roof.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Who's going to go first? Ms. Yepremian.
Yes. Good morning, Ms. Fuentes, Shoik Yepremian Consulting. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Aram Kazazian, who has filed for this variance, I believe, more than a year ago, to construct a garage and a carport on his commercial property at 372 Arden Avenue. The zoning on the property, as Kevork indicated, is CPD zoning, which is Commercial Planned Development Zone, which requires a 30-foot setback, interior setback, where the property is adjacent to residential zone property. In this case, the rear of the property, which is R1250 zoning, is also owned by Mr. Aram Kazazian. The commercial building is 11,867 square feet, which was built back in 1981, with 31 parking spaces. No changes are being proposed to the building or the use of the building. I would like to focus my presentation on the CPD zoning itself and the issues related to that specific zoning, and as projects are developed over time in this particular zone, the issues that come up all the time. And in my presentation, I will be covering all 4 findings as well. Arden Avenue, as you know, is the only street within the city which has a CPD zoning. More specifically, Arden Avenue between Central and Pacific. CPD zoning does not apply to corner properties on Central or Pacific and does not apply to properties that are north of Arden. There is only a small area, I believe, at the freeway ramp where CPD zoning is applied to, and I would like to submit a map to show that area. Okay.
Thank you.
I have always classified this zoning as an experimental zone. It is a commercial zoning, very much similar to C1, C2, or C3, but has stricter code provision. It allows most of the uses as other commercial zones, but development standards are different. It allows office uses, parking structures, and parking lots as permitted uses, just like C1, C2, or C3. Most of the lots on this block are 50 by 155. If you look at the zoning map directly behind you, they're all typical lots, 50 by 155. The subject lot is a corner lot, which has 99 by 166 feet. The intent of the CBD zone is to code, this is a direct code from the code itself, establish permitted uses and regulations for developing the highest and best use of certain land area. This area is typical commercial zone, near residential zone, just like any other commercial zones that are near multifamily residential zones in the city. Mr. Kazazian provides a 5-foot buffer where his commercial property abuts his residential zone property to the south. There's also an 8-foot high concrete block wall which separates the uses and the buildings. As you can see from the site plan, the proposed garage is located at the rear southeast corner of the property and does not cover the entire lot width. It is only 26 feet, I believe, compared to 99 feet lot width that he has. The new carport is open on all sides and again does not extend all the way to Columbus Avenue. To the east, there's a surface parking lot, and the parking garage sits on the property line and again only extends about 60 feet and not the entire length of the property. So development in generally is very limited compared to his lot size and the size of the building that he has. The overall building height that he proposes is 17 feet, and the carport is only 12 feet. So it's much less than what the code allows even under CPD zoning. If we look at the entire site, the existing commercial building is set back 45 feet and 8 inches from the rear property line, which is much more than the 30-foot setback that the code requires. Only 18 feet of that is covered by the carport or the building. Therefore, sufficient open space is still there, 25 feet, which is available between the carport and the building to provide sufficient driveway distance. And also, if we add the 5-foot separation between the property line and the carport or the building, that makes it a total of 30 feet. Most of the commercial buildings on Arden, we looked at the case files in the city files, were built by obtaining variance approvals since the inception of the CPD zone. The main reason is most of the lots on Arden, especially the south side of Arden, are narrow and long, 55 by 166 or so. Given the strict development standards that currently are in CPD zoning, many of the commercial buildings that are currently there weren't able to be built by just applying the code standards. at least we found 3 projects or 3 applications, commercial buildings that were built by obtaining variances, mostly for setback purposes and the 50% rule that applies to the CPD zoning for parking purposes, allowing parking spaces at the rare 50% of the property. Even subterranean parking in this zone requires a 10-foot setback from the rear property line. So in a typical project, a commercial project, it would be almost impossible to build any project on Arden Street, south of Arden, on CPD zoning, given the development standards that are currently in place. There are fundamental issues with the CPD zoning code standards where it is difficult to meet the intent of the zoning as outlined in the code. CPD zoning or development standards are harder to comply compared to C1, C2, and C3. And we have seen residential uses zones near other commercial zones, and they have worked perfectly well given the standards that apply in C1, C2, and C3. Unfortunately, development standards for CPD zone are almost impossible to meet without any variance approvals for office buildings or even structures. Again, this is not a main building. It is an accessory building that's incidental use for the commercial building. Finally, we believe that the proposed project meets the standards outlined in C1, C2, or C3. The fact that my client also owns the residential property that's directly to the south, it is a 1-story structure where the code's intent was to prevent 2 or 3 structures that are close to residential zone. And if we have to compare to this property to zones in C3, a height of 6-story structure would be allowed within a 5-foot setback. This is definitely not the case in this project. We believe that this is not detrimental to public health or safety, again, given the 8-foot block wall, 5-foot setback that's landscaped, a 1-story proposed garage, and the carport. Even with the residential building and the use to the south, it is not detrimental. We do have support letters from adjacent property owners, both residential and commercial, to submit for the record.
Okay.
Even if we assume the residential development to the south is one day developed, the residential standards allow a 3-foot or 3-story height building south of the commercial property. Again, in comparison to mass and scale, the residential development would be much higher and taller in height compared to what Mr. Kazazian is proposing. That concludes my presentation. I believe there were 2-3 emails from residents in the area. One, I believe, does not provide a name or a phone number or an address. And Mr. Kazazian is also here to address perhaps neighborhood services comments that he had, that you had in the file.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Run that by me again. You mentioned about if a commercial building will be built on site or something about being 6-story in height and setback. I missed that.
Currently, under C1 zone, if the property is adjacent to residential, in terms of setback or height?
Both.
Okay. C1 zone requires or allows a 5-foot minimum setback, which is, again, the stricter commercial zoning compared to C2 and C3. C2 also requires a 5-foot minimum.
Okay.
And C3 as well. None required for CR zoning. So if you have a CR zoning near residential, there's no setback requirement. And when you compare it to CPD, CPD requires a 30-foot setback.
Okay.
Even for subterranean, it requires 10. So, And then in
as-
terms
as
of
far as the
height,
height,
C1 allows 25 feet in terms of commercial building height. And C2, District 1, 35 feet, District 2, 45 or 3 stories. And then when we get to C3, you have 3 stories for District 1, 4 stories for District 2, and 6 stories for District 3.
That's the-
And then in CR zoning, it's 45 feet or 3 stories. Again, please keep in mind, in CR case, no setback is required, but the height can be 45 feet or 3 stories.
And what's the height of the existing building that you have now?
The main building?
Main building.
35 feet.
35.
So it meets the CPD zoning.
Right.
The proposal, it's only 17 feet.
17 and 12.
And 12.
Okay.
So in comparison to other commercial zoning, you can see that this particular zone does not work well.
Okay. Did you also do an alternate study where the proposed garage and carport, if it's attached to the existing building, and then the driveway kind of going through the side? Let me tell you what this is just an alter. If these buildings were attached here, and then this driveway kind of go, on the other side. Did you do an alternate study or
I believe-
feasibility study of doing that? Then you can address that later on. But I just wanted to see, because that will increase the setback.
Right.
What you're doing is moving the driveway on the other side, and then kind of having the driveway as the setback at the same time.
I believe there are building entrances, as I remember.
On that side? Okay. Then you're going to have to
Right.
let me know about that and
He can
justify
maybe
why.
address. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Kazajian. We can put that, do you need that on an easel or something?
Yes, I prepared it.
Or we can put it right here?
If you don't mind, maybe we can...
Go ahead, yeah.
Lean it against the chair?
So the camera can pick it up. No, put it right on the table. Just don't hit the microphone. And I'll move on this side. So. Yeah, or one on the easel. Yeah. Yeah. For now. Go ahead. This is working, so we're okay. 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes each, or 3 minutes each, whatever.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Aram Kazazian. I'm the owner of this property. Very much appreciate your time today for taking it and to listen to our comments. Number one is this area is going to be built totally green construction. That's what it is. We do have solar panels that are providing power to this area, and we also have solar power that's going to be generating power, which is going to be inputting into the city grid. That's already been submitted over a year and a half ago to the city of Glendale for their approval, and it's been approved and sitting right there waiting for this construction to be built. Let me go back to the comments of the neighborhood services. We do have our business incidentals. This building was built back in 1981 to house my construction company. In fact, when it was built, we installed underground fuel tanks over here to fuel all the trucks and equipment that the construction company had. So that fuel tanks, it was there until just a few years ago when we decided to remove them because the cost of testing, it was not not feasible to do. So this was built primarily for construction purpose building. So we had all our semi-trucks, trucks, trailers, Caterpillars, all the stuff was housed in this area for all those years until, and so far it is. We had installed, because we have the trucks, have a lot of tools in them, we had installed carport canopies over the trucks to protect them from the weather, from the rain. That's where the neighborhood services says that we're not allowed to have carport covers. There are a total of 2,700 carport covers in the city of Glendale. We have all the pictures of all of them with me, but they said we're not allowed to have it, so we had to remove it. That's the. But if you go to a permanent structure, they will be better for you. And so that's why we're providing a permanent structure to house all our trucks that will be under cover at this point of time. They're still there, but problem, we need to keep them under cover. Also, it protects the trucks from being vandalized, stolen. Just 2 weeks ago, we had all our driveway grates stolen in this building. Somebody came in to stole it. We have a lot of graffiti, so we have to kind of be very careful. Now, the buildings right behind us are owned by us, and we have, I think, provided you 14 different letters
Right.
that was provided in favor of this project. The building right behind it, there are no windows openings to this property, not like some other properties that are built 3 stories up. I will show you a very simple example of here's a building.
You may want to swing this microphone over to you so they can pick you up. Okay.
Okay, here's a building that's built. Here's the apartment complex. The building is built within less than 10 feet away from property line, next to the guy wires. You see that, with all the windows facing, all the windows here facing right into the apartment complexes. This is throughout the entire block. My property is the best one ever. In the back, there's garages. The back property line has garages, has a building, but there are no openings that are facing this way. It's totally enclosed. So if by me building a carport cover here is a better solution, the better environmentally better to provide than not to provide. Here's a building with a carport right on the above the apartment building, which is a perfect example. This particular one, it separates the noise from the cars, the fumes going up into the car windows. It's a better one. That's what it should have been done. Just because the zoning was done incorrectly, we shouldn't be doing that. Here are buildings on Arden. Every building, you can see they're either right to the property line in the front, or they're all next to each other. Here's another commercial building. They're all next to each other. All the buildings are built. Every one you look at. Here's a 6-story commercial building built right on property line next to a residence. Here's a 6-story building. Here's another building, commercial building, built within 3 feet of a residential property. Within 3 feet. So this is a better solution. It separates the cars, and I have been extremely sensitive to the neighborhood. That's why we made sure no one is affected in any way. The property right next door to this, which is owned by the Movies Lodge, we've been very, very good neighbors together. We help each other, and they have a letter provided to us.
Right.
To you before we even applied for this variance. We got their permission to do so before we applied the variance to get this building built. Okay.
Anything else?
Okay. So we took care of the neighborhood services. We took care of. The shelters, fuel tanks, the plane, all the equipment were there. Oh, okay. Now, you asked a question, why didn't we join the garage to the building?
Right.
Around that point, there is parking. If we look at some of the floor plan, Do you want me to go over there, show you? Right in here, there's cars parked this way in this area. So if we attach to this, it'd be not possible for cars to get in, and we would lose a lot of parking space. Here's the floor plan, or here's the floor plan. You can see this area is all parking. So we'll bring it this way, we'll lose it. We do have the proper backup space. We have 27 foot 8 inches backup in here. That's why we couldn't do it.
Okay.
I have a lot more to say, but I will.
Well, you have a rebuttal period, so
You have any questions? I'll be more than glad to.
no, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I just for the record, I have 14 letters signed by neighbors and tenants, basically in support of the application.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Joshua Wilson. And can I have your address, please, when you... Okay.
Yes, my address is 373 Burchett.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Joshua Wilson. I believe this will be a good project. I reside right behind, south of this project, and I have no opposition of this. I'm totally in favor. It will provide jobs for the community, especially in this bad economic time. So.
Okay. Thank you. Zaven Kassasian.
Good morning. I'm Zaven Kazazian, and by association of the name, I'm Aram Kazazian's brother.
I didn't recognize that.
Well,
Okay.
I wanted to just mention is the fact that my brother also owns a property right next door, and he would not do anything to adversely impact the residential property because it's a rental for him. And he has owned this property since 1981, and it's not something that he is planning on selling it. It's something that he's planning on keeping it, and it is not something that he is trying to just capitalize and build it and sell it. This has been his property. It's his baby. As a matter of fact, one of the things, all the bricks of this, he actually trucked it from Utah because he found the special bricks that he wanted to use. So this has been his baby. So he is not going to do anything that's going to be adversely impacting either the neighborhood or any of the city in that general block. So I am comfortable to assure you the fact that this is going to be done by code, and it's also going to be done, as you mentioned, very green, and it will also be something that will enhance the neighborhood. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have any at this.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hal Weber. Long time no see.
Good morning, Edith.
Good morning.
I'm Al Weber. I live at 414 Arden Avenue. I've lived there since January 1980, and that was before the CPD zone was created. And I was all in favor of CPD. I think that most of the provisions are great, except in this day and age, why they're a little bit too strict. All along the property, all along the CPD zone, from Central to Pacific, there have been variances to allow two-story buildings that are a lot closer to the back property line than 30 feet. This particular structure, which is being proposed, is only 12 feet for the carport and 17 feet for the garage, and it's a very nice-looking structure, which I think will enhance the appearance of that corner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak in support or opposition? Seeing none, closing comments, Ms. Premian, 5 minutes, please.
Yes, Ms. Fuentes, good morning. You have heard my presentation. Through my presentation, I covered all 4 findings, I believe, in terms of the strict application of the code, how CBD is currently in place compared to other commercial zones in the city. In terms of practical difficulties as outlined on the site plan and the proposed project, and the uniqueness of the property in terms of size, scale, mass and scale compared to other properties, and also in terms of this project not being detrimental to the public health and safety, as you have accepted both in written from residents in the area, as well both commercial properties as well as residential properties in support of the project. And you have heard today some of the other support testimonies, and we have reviewed the staff report, even though they do not support this application, but given the testimonies today and my presentation, we do believe that the proposed project should be approved as presented today. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kasajian, can I ask you?
Sure.
The entire, and I know you may be the only one who could make a decision on this, the C1, C2, C3, they have like a 5-foot minimum setback requirement on, I'm not sure if it's the rear or
If they're abutting residential.
interior, right? Tell me if I'm going to require a 5-foot setback along the perimeter or the side and the rear of the building. How is that going to impact the proposed structure?
Ms. Fuentes.
That's going to take away like 5
Yeah.
feet.
The rear already does have a 5-foot setback.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the landscape strip there, it's 5 foot. So
Okay.
there's no problem there because we already provide a 5 foot there for landscaping.
How about
wise
on
or
the
beautification.
other side?
The problem with that will be it will be a detriment to because we won't be able to get the car
Right.
parking into that area. That's the only problem we're going to
Okay.
have. I mean, it's just be very difficult. Worst comes to worst, we can just leave that wall open, if you like, not continue. The wall already exists up there by 8 feet. There's a rod iron on top of it
Right.
for another 2 feet. That's a 10-foot at this time. And the ceiling height is 14 feet. The rest is a parapet. We can just leave that portion open, if you like.
This is where you have the 8-foot high wall, right?
Correct. There's an 8-foot existing at this time.
I know. I'm trying to look at the pros and cons of what's the difference, leaving it open or enclosing it, because I think if you put a roof on it, building code may also require you to just close it, for fire protection. It's much better than having
Yeah.
it open.
I think the building code requires a parapet
Yeah.
above the roof area, but I could, that's why we
Right.
have that.
You're gonna have to go higher than the roof.
Correct.
Just like a
The
firewall.
Fire break,
Yeah,
the firewall is called. But I could try to see if building would allow us to leave it open.
Right.
I don't mind, that's fine, but they might object
Yeah.
to that. Only problem is,
Okay.
the building will be a sprinkler, by the way, so it'll be, the entire building will be fire sprinklered, so that's a benefit to the city too. But it's up to you. if
Okay,
you see
anything
that.
else before? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Well, I will go ahead. Gevorg, any closing comments or?
Not at the moment, except I would like to mention two things. One,
Okay.
that reducing it by 5 feet may, as Mr. Kazazian mentioned, may impact on the size of the garage that will
Yeah.
in fact be not be a two-car garage anymore.
Right,
Because
right.
we've been working hard and trying to maintain the parking spaces.
Right,
So we're
right.
still recommending denial.
Yeah.
Mr. Kazazian,
I know, I would rather,
spaces that are legal and that are up to code. So that would most likely impact on that.
Yeah.
And also, Ms. Yepremian mentioned about, I heard her say that a 60-foot high building could be 5 feet from the property. I would just like to make a notation
Mm-hmm.
and sort of correct that. A 60 feet high building in the C2 or C3 zone would have to be 30 feet from the property line. However, a 28-foot high building could be 5-foot minimum, average of 7, or average of 8, I apologize. Wanted to clarify that.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I know, and I'm with you. I'm trying to see, because if we reduce the size of the garage, it's not going to be as functional and logical anymore to be used as a garage. So, okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead, take this case under submission, and close the public hearing at 10:20. Thank you all very much for coming.